Hello, everyone. My name is Kendra Hawk, and I am the Associate Registrar of Enrollment Management for Undergraduate Medical Education, which is the MD program at the University of Toronto. And I'm here with Heta and Dion, and we're going to talk today about wellness. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves first?
Yes,
Sure.
so this is Heta.
This is Dion.
And we're the 2018-2019 admissions reps for the MD program. So we've seen a lot of you who might be watching this throughout our admissions process at the interviews.
Yes,
and we might be seeing some of you too come next weekend because we have our final interview weekend upcoming.
Excuse me. So our theme today is wellness. It's probably gonna be a short Facebook Live, but you're welcome if anyone is tuning in to ask questions as we go along. We're at a stage right now in our admission cycle where all of the interview invitations have gone out and all of the refusals, so people who aren't being invited to interviews, have been notified as well. And we just wanted to address that time in the cycle. So, I think I might have just stolen your thunder though. This is your idea when we were talking about what to do for a Facebook Live in April. And so I thought it would be a good idea for you to explain why you thought this would be a good Facebook Live.
Sure. I think Dion and I originally thought of this Facebook Live because throughout our application process, we kind of went through a lot of uncertainty, and there is a lot of uncertainty in the entire application process. When the time where you decide that you want to apply to med school to the time you get your offer, and the time you're waiting for your interviews, the time after your interviews, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty just is not only throughout the application process, but in any profession or career that you go into. I think the uncertainty will be there, and it's important to have the coping strategies in your toolkit to be able to deal with the uncertainty.
Yeah, I also think today, in addition to the coping strategies, we just wanted to share a few tips and tricks of kind of how we did it or how we shouldn't have done it when we were applying too.
Are the donuts coming up again? So I thought maybe we'd take a step back, since you guys are current MD students, and just talk about how important wellness is as an MD student.
Yeah, so wellness is undoubtedly very important as an MD student. I think everybody here knows, well, and everybody just watching this might know of the CAN-MEDS rules. And just for some rehash, that's your professionalism, your communication, your collaboration, all these things that contribute to you being an overall medical expert. Now, did you know under the professional rule, there's actually a little sub-points for wellness, because it's very important for us as physicians to actually stay accountable, not just to our patients, but to ourselves. And with that said, I think it's great because you should never feel ashamed for actually pursuing your own wellness, because that's first and foremost what's very important. So
yeah, you can't take care of someone else if you don't take care of yourself. I think I might have just stolen RuPaul's slogan.
Yeah, exactly. I think in order to be able to serve anyone else, I think it's important to serve yourself first. As Kendra said, take care of yourself, and you should never feel guilty about taking some time out for yourself and just kind of meet your own needs.
And Heta, actually, I'm going to steal a point from Heta. She mentioned this before, but you're going to have uncertainty at pretty much any time point in your life. And it's important to develop these strategies for your wellness to make sure that you're always prepared for it. For example, right now, you can, throughout the interview cycle and even after the interview cycle, when you're a medical student like us, these stresses are pervasive, and it's always going to kind of be here, and it's just about what you do with it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of med students talk about them being worried about the residency match after you get into med school. So there's the practical career worries, and then there's also the worries or uncertainty as a practitioner. It seems to me that, there'll be a point in a diagnosis where you think signs are pointing to yes, but you have to go with that uncertainty and move forward. Sorry, I jumped in there.
No, that's important. Yeah.
So how do you guys stay well as med students? How do you take care of yourselves?
I think for me, it comes down to the basics. So eating properly, sleeping properly, going to the gym, and just taking time out for yourself. I also meditate every day, which really helps. Yeah. I meditate for at least 15 minutes every day. So that really helps me to kind of just gather my thoughts and just be in my own space. Yeah, that really helps me.
It's an important practice. I have a time schedule to meditate every day that I pretty much miss every day. So I think it adds to my stress, but if you can actually nail it, it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned basic needs, because on the topic of Maslow's hierarchy, I definitely agree with you. You have to start with your food, your shelter, make sure your basic needs there are being met. And I assure you they are being met, and you have many opportunities as a student to meet these, such as food. You have so many different food options in Toronto. Housing, while housing can be a little bit of a mess, eventually people find their place, and also there's relationships too, and that's something that I personally cling on to a lot. I think I am sometimes described as a needy person to the people who might be close to me, but I think that's
I
good.
guess I don't know you well then. Well, thank you very much for those tips. And I did want to make a special plug for our Office of Health Professions Student Affairs. I had to look because I go by the acronym OPSA. And this is an office that's specifically for our medical students, and they offer career counseling and career exploration. And that is really tied into figuring out what kind of residency match you want and helping you with that direction. And then they're also available for any sort of personal counseling or couples counseling. And it's completely discreet and private. And I think it's just an incredible service that we do offer our students. And if any of you are feeling stressed out there, out listening, you really should reach out to any of your administrative staff at your university if you're still in school, and I'm sure they have a slew of services that can help you too. So,
one thing I just want to interrupt you with,
Please do.
I just wanted to add something to the OPSA stuff. I was actually there just half an hour ago, believe it or not, and it was for a career counseling appointment that was in which OPSA invited all of the 2T1 class. So this is the second year class in med school, because things are coming up, clerkship, electives, and then eventually you might have to think about residency as time moves on, and they're a great resource for that too. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but I just wanted to give my own plug.
Yeah, no, please do.
I can confirm it is a great resource.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if any of you belong to the community of support, which I'll plug now, it's a self-declared community that helps applicants who come from underrepresented groups, including low socioeconomic status, or maybe a racialized group that's underrepresented in medicine. Ike works out of that office as well, even though he's part of our team too. So we were here, and you guys are here because of your work with admissions. And so I think you guys have reflected back to this time in your application process. And what do you want to say about how you guys coped with this time? You know, you'd gone to your interview, and now it's the waiting game.
So I guess I'll go first. Thankfully, I had the very last interview date, so I had the least amount of time to wait for my interview. And I think something that I did throughout of my fourth year, because I was applying during my fourth year of undergrad, was I seeked out wellness at my current university, so wellness services at my current university, where I saw a counselor, and I just got some coping strategies. So that's where I started meditation. That's where I learned yoga, and really started focusing on the basic needs, because that's what I felt like I was missing at that point. And that's I've kind of built on that throughout these years, and then continued it in med school. And that really helped me. I also spent a lot of time with my close friends and family and my dog. Yeah, I think that's what I did for my life.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about is the idea of rumination. This, I think, is the key word for pretty much every applicant right now, no matter what phase you're in. If you've gotten a rejection letter, you're going to ruminate as to how you're going to move on. If you have your interview upcoming, you're going to ruminate about how it's going to go. And if you've already done your interview, you're going to ruminate about how that went. And believe it or not, I think everybody ruminates for the people specifically who have done their interview. If you think you've done bad, you're going to think about it. And if you think you've done good, you're also going to think about it. Specifically, you're going to be like, oh, because I've done good, it's probably because the interviewer was just very nice to everybody and wasn't really a reflection of me. And this is a tough thing to handle because everybody ruminates naturally, but it's just the first step is to acknowledge that.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard a tip recently to schedule your ruminating. You might want to call it worry as well. So you sort of write down the things you're worrying about and then book a time to sit and worry about it. So it could be like 15 minutes tomorrow at 10:10 when you know you have some free time, and that's your ruminating time. And so again, it's acknowledging that you have these worries, but then sort of taking the step to be in control of them. It's not everyone knows it doesn't help to worry. But what do you do with that worry? It's not just going to vanish. So if you schedule your worry, you can kind of compartmentalize it a little bit and, acknowledge it's there and then deal with it kind of in an appropriate time frame for you so it's not so disruptive.
Oh, that's actually a great tip. I never thought about scheduling worry time.
I know, I liked that idea. I mean, it doesn't work for everyone. And again, like if you really find yourself ruminating a lot, go and talk to somebody who's a professional about it. But these are just kind of fun tips, ways that real people have dealt with this time.
And for those of you who have done your interviews, I remember after my interview, I always replayed every scenario in my head. I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said this, or I probably shouldn't have said that. And I think that's completely normal. So something that might seem a big deal to you isn't probably that big of a deal. So just putting that out there.
Yeah.
One thing I know, the thing I'm going to say right now is going to be one of those things where you're like, oh, but hindsight is 2020. I'd still like to share it because I think it's important. And it's going to sound very cliche as well, because what I'm trying to say is that you should also, no matter where you are in the cycle, try your best to be present. Because I know when I was applying, I was putting in so much effort with my preparation and everything. I really did neglect school. And it's not the idea of your grades will fluctuate or something, but you kind of have to enjoy the time you have in your undergrad or your whatever program you're in at the moment. Because let's just say you do get in. One thing I struggled with was not getting as much closure as I would have liked to. And it just was weird because at the last day of class, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm still going to be here or not. And then after come September, I found out I was there because I was supposed to continue my undergrad. And I just had no way to say bye to my favorite profs, my friends from Mac. And it was just left to online Facebook messaging, which was very weird.
Yeah.
So you should definitely value the time you do have right now too.
Yeah, and good luck on your final exams if you're in school. And congratulations if you came for an interview. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we wrap up? No?
Good luck.
Well, thanks again, Heta and Dion. I think this was a great idea. And, we have a question. Oh, well, you can message on Facebook because obviously I'm logged in right now. If you don't want to ask the question here, there's a comment asking about how do I get a reply to a question. If you're a current applicant, you can email md.applicants@utoronto.ca. That's a plural applicants. And if you're a prospective student, you can email our admissions staff and we'll answer within 48 hours. And that email address is medicine.admiss, ADMISS, @utoronto.ca.
You can also email Dion and I on our student email, which we'll post on this Facebook Live.
Oh, thank you.
We'll post it. And this is especially important for the people who have their interviews upcoming. because while this is completely optional, we have our coffee house that's going to be happening on Friday. This is an event that takes place before every single interview weekend, and a lot of the applicants in the past have rated it a pleasurable experience just to get to know a couple of the current MD students and to learn about their life.
Yeah, but it's completely optional, so don't feel pressured to come.
I won't be there. I'm not keeping track. All right. Well, thank you everyone who is going to watch this or has watched this, and we look forward to meeting you on Sunday if you're coming. Thank you.
All the best.
Bye-bye.